I'm Naomi Torres. To my stepfather, Rick, I'm a 40-year-old failure who wears baggy clothes, stares at a laptop all day, and crashes at my mother's house because life didn't work out. He calls me kiddo with a sneer. He asks if I've found a real job yet. He tells his poker buddies that I'm finding myself, rolling his eyes as if I'm a teenager going through a goth phase. What he doesn't know, what I haven't been allowed to tell him, is that I am a rear admiral, lower half, in the United States Navy. I serve as the deputy commander of Fleet Cyber Command. My laptop connects directly to the NSA. The video games he thinks I play are real-time simulations of grid defense against foreign state actors. I am one of the youngest officers to ever reach flag rank, promoted early due to my work in cryptographic warfare. I don't wear my uniform at home because I'm on a specific transition leave, overseeing a classified restructuring of digital assets from a secure remote location, my childhood bedroom. He sees a couch potato. I see global threat matrices. While he grumbles about trash days and yard work, I am authorizing countermeasures against level 5 digital threats. I couldn't correct him. My clearance doesn't allow for petty clarifications in family kitchens. And honestly, part of me didn't want to. There is a safety in being underestimated. But every day, Rick made it harder to keep my rank a secret. I wasn't always this calm. It took years of discipline, thousands of hours in high-pressure command, to build the kind of silence that speaks louder than any defense. But under that roof, surrounded by judgment and ego, I could feel that silence starting to strain. Because the truth was, Rick wasn't just rude. He was a man obsessed with authority. He was a retired Army colonel, '06, who never made general, and he wore that chip on his shoulder like a medal. He thought I was a joke. He had no idea that in the military hierarchy he worshipped, I was the one he would have to salute. Rick moved into my mother's house 6 months ago, as if he were assuming command of a forward operating base. He brought with him the rigid energy of a man who never truly left the service, even if the service had long since moved on without him. He loved calling the house his post. He barked orders at me like I was fresh out of boot camp. 0600, Naomi, he'd shout, banging on my door. Daylight's burning. The perimeter walk needs doing. He meant the gardening. He never asked me to contribute rent in money. He preferred something more humiliating. He demanded I scrub the baseboards with a toothbrush, organize his dusty old garage, and polish his ridiculous collection of challenge coins like they were sacred artifacts. I did it all, quietly. I did it for my mom. She was recovering from hip surgery, and she seemed happy to have a man around, even one as insufferable as Rick. She whispered to me, "He just likes things orderly, honey. Humor him." So I humored him. I folded the towels. I mowed the lawn. I listened to his lectures about discipline and grit while thinking about the briefing I had just delivered to the Joint Chiefs of Staff regarding quantum encryption. He had a thing for structure. He kept a clipboard with a rotating list of house chores and called it the duty roster. If I missed one item, he'd give me a speech about personal accountability, quoting outdated field manuals as if they were scripture. Most days, he treated me like background noise. But when his old Army friends came around, he suddenly remembered I existed. That's when I became the punchline. "This is Naomi," he'd say with a smirk, gesturing to me in my oversized Stanford hoodie. "She's on sabbatical. Permanent sabbatical, if you ask me. Thinks the internet is a career." They'd laugh, awkward and unsure. I'd be standing right there, holding a tray of beers I had fetched for them. He mocked my clothes constantly. He once asked me if I owned anything with buttons. "You dress like a teenager," he said. "How do you expect anyone to take you seriously? In the real world, appearance is rank." I almost laughed. In my world, rank is rank. And I had the gold stripes to prove it. But the worst part wasn't the chores or the jokes. It was the lectures on leadership. He'd stand square in front of me, feet shoulder-width apart, and talk about the chain of command. He loved that phrase. He'd tell me how, as a colonel, he held the lives of men in his hands. An 06 is a god in the field, Naomi, he'd say. You wouldn't understand. It's the pinnacle of a career. He had no idea that an 06 is a subordinate to an 07. While he was reminiscing about drills in the 90s, I was overseeing budgets larger than the GDP of small nations. It took everything in me to keep quiet. I'd nod, listen, let him believe what he needed to. He lived for respect, but he never gave any. And every time he puffed his chest or lectured me about what it means to serve, I bit my tongue and reminded myself, patience is also a weapon. Behind the locked door of what Rick called my cave, I ran a classified operations center. My bedroom looked messy to the untrained eye. But the laptop on the desk was a hardened government asset with biometric locks. The phone next to it was a STE, secure terminal equipment, disguised as a bulky landline. Each morning, while Rick brewed his burnt coffee and checked cable news, I reviewed threat matrices. One Tuesday, I was deep in a crisis simulation involving a potential grid blackout on the eastern seaboard. My team was on the secure video link. Colonels, majors, brilliant analysts, all waiting for my go-ahead. Admiral, one of the captains said on the screen, we need authorization to deploy the patch. It's risky. Do it, I said. I'll take the heat. Suddenly, there was a pounding on my bedroom door. Naomi, trash day. The truck is coming in 10 minutes. I hit the mute button instantly. I'm coming, Rick, I yelled back, pitching my voice to sound tired and annoyed. I unmuted. Execute the patch. Report back in 15. I closed the laptop. I walked out, grabbed the trash bags, and dragged them to the curb, while Rick watched from the porch, shaking his head. You moved too slow, he grumbled. If you were in my unit, I'd have you peeling potatoes for a month. I looked at him. I thought about the cyber attack I had just neutralized. I thought about the fact that if I hadn't moved fast, his precious cable news would be offline right now. Good thing I'm not in your unit, Rick, I said. Yeah, he snorted. You wouldn't last a day? It happened on a Thursday evening. The breaking point. Rick had been in a foul mood all week. He was trying to get tickets to the Joint Service Gala in D.C., the biggest military social event of the year. He wanted to go to show off his medals and rub elbows with the active duty brass. He had failed. The event was invitation only, high security, and strictly limited. A retired colonel from 20 years ago didn't cut. He was taking his frustration out on us. We were eating dinner, meatloaf, dry as dust. I had my phone on the table, not my personal phone, my secure duty phone. I was expecting a status screen confirmation on a satellite realignment. The phone buzzed, a specific rhythmic vibration. I reached for it instinctively. Rick's hand shot out. He grabbed my wrist. Hard. No phones at the table, he barked. Rule number 1. I froze. I looked at his hand on my wrist. His grip was tight, painful. Let go, Rick, I said quietly. I'll let go when you learn some manners, he sneered. You think because you pay for your own internet you can do whatever you want? This is my mess hall. He snatched the phone from the table with his other hand. Rick, don't, I warned, my voice dropping. That isn't a toy. It's a distraction, he said. He looked at the screen. It was locked, of course, but the notification banner was visible. It was a red banner. Priority 1. Eyes only. Commander Fleet Cyber. Rick squinted at it. What is this? A game? Commander Fleet Cyber? You playing role-playing games now? He laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. Give me the phone, Rick. Or what? He challenged. You gonna cry to your mom? I stood up. I didn't yell. I didn't throw a tantrum. I stood up with the posture I used when I entered the Situation Room. That device represents a national security asset, I said, my voice ice cold. You are currently in possession of government property without clearance. Hand it over. Rick blinked. The change in my tone threw him off. For a second, he looked unsure. Then his ego kicked back in. Oh, listen to you, he crowed. National security? You think because you read some conspiracy blogs you're a spy. Sit down, Naomi. He tossed the phone onto the couch across the room. You can have it after you do the dishes. I looked at the phone. Then I looked at him. I could have called the MPs. I could have had him arrested for interfering with a federal officer. But I realized something. Arresting him would be too easy. He would spin it. He would play the victim I needed him to see. I needed him to understand exactly how small he really was. Fine, I said. I walked over, picked up the phone, and put it in my pocket. I'll do the dishes. Rick smiled, satisfied. See? Discipline. It works. He had no idea. I went back to my room that night and made a call, not to the police, to my aide-de-camp. Lieutenant, I said, I need a +1 for the gala on Saturday. Yes, Admiral. Who is the guest? Retired Colonel Richard Vance, Army. Copy that, ma'am. I'll have the invitation courier delivered in the morning. And Lieutenant, make sure he's seated at table 1, with me. Understood, Admiral. I hung up. Rick wanted to go to the ball. I was going to take him, and I was going to make sure it was a night he would never forget. The invitation arrived the next morning via a uniformed courier. Heavy cardstock, gold leaf, embossed seal. Rick was ecstatic. He practically danced around the kitchen. I told you, he shouted, waving the invite. I still have pull. Someone at the Pentagon remembers old Rick. Look at this. Table 1. That's the head table, Naomi. That's where the chairman sits. He looked at me, gloating. See? This is what a career of service gets you. Respect. Recognition. He paused, looking generous. It says I have a +1. Your mother isn't feeling well enough to travel. He sighed, acting like it was a burden. I guess I can take you. You need to see what real success looks like. Maybe it'll inspire you. I smiled. I'd love to go, Rick. Good. Now listen. This is a black tie military event. Wear something appropriate. Cover up. Don't embarrass me. And don't speak unless spoken to. These are important people. I'll be on my best behavior, I promised. Saturday night came. Rick was wearing his dress mess uniform. It was 20 years old, a little tight around the middle, but he had polished his medals until they blinded you. I walked out wearing a long, simple navy cloak that covered me from neck to ankles. It was elegant, but it hid everything underneath. Rick frowned. You look like a monk, but at least it's not a hoodie. Let's go. We took a cab to the hotel ballroom. The security was tight. MPs everywhere. When we got to the checkpoint, Rick flashed his retired ID with a flourish. Colonel Vance, table 1. The young sergeant checking the list looked at the ID, then at the list. He paused. He looked at me. I gave a subtle nod. Right this way, Colonel, the sergeant said. You're expected. Rick beamed. He strutted into the ballroom like he owned it. Did you see that? He whispered to me. That's respect. He knows a superior officer when he sees one. We walked through the crowd. It was a sea of uniforms, Navy, Army, Air Force. Stars and eagles everywhere. Rick was in heaven. He was shaking hands, slapping backs, trying to insert himself into conversations with generals who politely tolerated him. He dragged me along like a prop. "This is my stepdaughter," he'd say. "She's figuring things out." We reached table 1. It was right next to the podium. "Look at this," Rick whispered, checking the place cards. "General Miller, Admiral Lewis, and look, there's a seat for guest of honor." He sat down next to it, puffing his chest. "I bet I'm sitting next to the keynote speaker." I sat down next to him, still wrapped in my cloak. "Keep your cloak on," he hissed. "It's chilly in here." The lights dimmed. The master of ceremonies walked to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," the voice boomed, "please rise for the arrival of the official party." Everyone stood up. Rick stood up, snapping to attention, his eyes locked on the stage entrance. "Pay attention, Naomi," he whispered. "This is tradition." The MC continued. "Please welcome our host and keynote speaker, the Deputy Commander of Fleet Cyber Command." The doors opened. "Rear Admiral Naomi Torres." Rick froze. He turned his head slowly to look at me. I stood up. I unclasped the cloak. It slid off my shoulders and pooled on the floor. Underneath, I was wearing the dinner dress white jacket uniform. It was immaculate. The high collar, the miniature medals on the left breast, and on the shoulder boards, the broad gold stripe of a flag officer, a rear admiral, 07. The silence at our table was deafening. Rick looked at my shoulders. He looked at my face. His brain was misfiring. He looked like he was having a stroke. "Naomi?" he squeaked. I didn't look at him. I looked straight ahead. A Marine general at the table, a 3-star, turned to me. "Admiral Torres," the general said, smiling, "we've been waiting for you. Excellent work on the Black Sea Situational Report." I nodded to the general. "Thank you, sir." I turned to Rick. He was trembling. His face was the color of ash. He was standing next to a rear admiral, and he was realizing that for 6 months he had been treating a flag officer like a maid. "Rick," I said. My voice wasn't the voice of his stepdaughter. It was the voice that commanded fleets. "You're out of uniform," I said calmly. He looked down at his jacket. "What?" "Your tie is crooked," I said. "Fix it." It was a petty order, the kind he used to give me. Rick's hands flew to his tie. He was shaking so hard he couldn't straighten it. "And Rick," I added, "yes, yes? When a flag officer is present, you stand at attention until told otherwise." He snapped his heels together so hard it must have hurt. He stood rigid, eyes terrified, staring at a point on the wall. "As you were," I said. I walked away from the table. I walked up the stairs to the stage. The spotlight hit me. I looked out at the sea of faces. I saw Rick at table 1, looking small, looking terrified, looking like the past. I gave my speech. It was about the future of warfare, about the silent battles fought in the dark, about how true power isn't about volume, but about precision. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. I walked back to the table. Rick was gone. I found him outside, sitting on a bench near the valet stand. He had unbuttoned his collar. He looked deflated. He saw me coming. He stood up. He didn't know what to do with his hands. "You're an admiral," he whispered. "A rear admiral." "Yes, but you're 40. You wear hoodies. You live in your mom's house." "I'm a prodigy, Rick," I said. "I made rank faster than anyone in the history of the Cyber Corps, and I'm at my mom's house because I'm overseeing a classified transition that required me to be off-grid. It's called operational security, something a colonel should understand." He swallowed hard. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you never asked," I said. "You saw what you wanted to see. You saw a woman without a husband and assumed she had no worth. You saw a hoodie and assumed I was lazy. I stepped closer. You lectured me about the chain of command, Rick. Do you remember? He nodded, unable to speak. Well, here is the reality, I said. I am the chain of command, and you have been disrespectful to a superior officer for 6 months. I'm sorry, he choked out. Naomi, I'm sorry. Admiral, I corrected. Admiral, he repeated instantly. I'm sorry, Admiral. I looked at him. I felt the weight of the last 6 months lift off my shoulders. The anger was gone. It was replaced by a cool, professional distance. I'm moving out next week, I said. My new post is ready, but before I go, we need to establish the new rules of engagement for this family. Anything, he said. You will treat my mother with respect. You will stop barking orders, and you will never, ever touch my equipment again. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am. Yes, Admiral. Good. I turned to the valet. Bring my car. The colonel will be taking a taxi. 2 weeks later, I was packing the last of my gear into my car. My real car, a black government SUV that had been delivered that morning. Rick was in the driveway, watering the lawn. He saw me come out. He turned off the hose immediately. He stood up, straight. Can I help you with those bags, Admiral? He asked. It wasn't sarcastic. It was fearful. I've got it, Rick, I said. I loaded the bag. I turned to say goodbye to my mom. She hugged me tight. I'm so proud of you, she whispered. And thank you. He's been much quieter lately. I smiled. Rank has its privileges, Mom. I got into the SUV. I rolled down the window. Rick was standing by the garage. He didn't wave. He brought his hand up in a slow, respectful salute. I didn't return it. I was in civilian clothes, and frankly, he hadn't earned it. But I nodded. I drove away. As I merged onto the highway, heading back to Fleet Command, I thought about the months of silence, the insults, the chores. He thought I was nothing. But in the Navy, we have a saying about icebergs. The part you see is just a fraction of what's underneath. And the part underneath? That's the part that sinks ships. I turned up the radio. I had a fleet to run,